Alrighty, hello, you guys. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Self Mastery Monday. We have a lot to cover today, specifically that happened over the weekend. We're going to be recapping all the news and all the trending topics from this weekend. Specifically, we're going to be speaking about Tucker Carlson's recent comment surrounding Charlie Kirk and his death and the possibilities of who may have been involved or the motives that may have caused him to experience such tragedies. And then we're going to be switching over to Patrick Bet-David and Vinny. They responded to, I guess you could say, TPUSA regarding the AI controversy. Apparently there was some conversation they had, and I personally am genuinely curious as to what that conversation is. We'll definitely get into it as we go along. And then lastly, we're going to be closing out with the Vice President JD Vance recent negotiation involving the Iran deal and basically how tensions are already rising there. So we have a lot to discuss. I don't want to take too much time with the intro. But before we get into today's topic, do remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, and do comment below specifically on where you stand with these issues. I want to know how you guys are evaluating these things. I want to know what you guys' general thought process are for people who are tuning in. But without further ado, let's get into today's topics. All right, you guys. So we're just going to kick it off, right, with, I think that this was one of the biggest things going off all weekend on Twitter, and it's probably still trending now. It's literally one of the top stories, the controversy surrounding conservatives with Charlie Kirk. Specifically, they're speaking on Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens on Tucker's recent comment, but obviously Candace Owens has been very, very open on, what she thinks possibly may have caused Charlie to experience certain tragedies. So this is, I guess, I don't want to say Tucker's way of choosing a side, because I think Tucker has been just very like he just says how he feels. He's just been very kind of firm on, on his opinions, whether right or wrong. He says, what he thinks based off the available information. And we're gonna first, let's just listen in to what he actually said, and then we'll just give our general comments as we go along, as we usually do. But let's listen in really quickly to, you can kind of say, the video that is taking Twitter, X, I'm still getting used to it, by storm. So let's listen in.
Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Yeah.
And he was not murdered for his opinions on transgenderism, obviously. He was, I believe, and most people who knew him well, as I did, and was friends with him as I was, believe he was most likely murdered for his evolving views on Israel. So I get it. A lot's at stake. The world is at stake. But from my perspective, I have a duty to say what I think is true. I'm often wrong. And I always say that because it's a fact. I have been wrong a lot, and I may be wrong now. But I am sincere. I'm saying what I believe is true, and I'm going to continue doing that no matter what.
Okay, so obviously we know there's been a split between people who believe Charlie Kirk was murdered by Tyler Robinson and so there's been the other side of people who don't believe that narrative is true. So the reason why that is significant is because Tucker is obviously claiming that Charlie's allegedly, right? There is a claim that Charlie had evolving views towards his support towards Israel. We all know that Charlie was pro-Israel, pro-support towards our greatest ally. Tucker was not. And Tucker taking this position, allegedly, right, based off his understanding, is a little bit of confirmation, you can kind of say, that Charlie's view of the claim that Charlie was changing his views on Israel could be more substantial and more towards the truth of maybe why he actually was murdered. And that's why it's pretty much significant. One, the relationship that Charlie and Tucker had, obviously there's no debate that they were close. The second thing is, if Tucker is coming out to say that Charlie did have evolving views on Israel, ultimately, as someone who's close to him, that claim will hold some kind of weight because of how strong the relationship was. And we've seen that, right? We've seen that with with Tucker coming on Charlie's show before and after his death. He had a conversation after Charlie's death with basically how the relationship with him and Charlie was, and I'll play a clip right here so you guys can see that.
Really want people to understand, Tucker, you and Charlie had such a unique and special bond and relationship. It was a deep friendship, and you both had each other's back in an
he
incredible
had my
way.
back.
You had his back too.
Holy
I know those
smokes.
stories as well.
Yeah. And I promised I wouldn't get into any of that, but I will say, and I'm not going to, but I will say, because I want this to be about Jesus and his love for Jesus and what he did to spread the word of Jesus throughout the world. But I will just say this, that whenever I would come and do a gig for you guys, which was a lot because I really enjoyed it, and he was so kind to invite me and defend my being there, but I would always, he's the only person I did this with, I would always say, hey, you know, let's like meet in my hotel room or have a meal. Like, I loved talking to him. And it wasn't just to catch up on everything that's going on in the political world. He would always bring it back to God every single time. And it was so, there's no one around. Like, so he didn't need to be like, oh, yeah, I really love God. It was like, just us. And he'd be talking about that.
And you would come to Phoenix and you would reach out to, it was like, I have so many memories of Charlie being like, I got to do dinner. Who are you doing dinner with? Oh, Tucker's in town. I got to meet up with him.
Always, always. And he was so intellectually curious and flexible. And I think that also grew out of his Christian faith. And I know that as I've gotten older, it's been one of the things I appreciate most about believing in God is like you can admit when you were wrong.
As you guys can see, you know, they've made time for each other. They were Tucker was very supportive of Charlie. Charlie was very open and wanted Tucker to be a part of TPUSA in different ways. So that's pretty much a big reason why it's so significant. And then another reason why it's so significant, apart from this coming from Tucker, is because Tucker ultimately, quote unquote, is taking a side. Right? He's taking the side of Candace Owens, as in a way, right? It's not like he's saying, hey, I completely agree with everything that Candace is doing. It's not like he's saying I completely agree with how she's going about things or whatever the case may be. He's ultimately saying that he does align with her perspective versus with TPUSA's perspective. Because Candace Owens' perspective is that Charlie Kirk was not killed by Tyler Robinson, one, and the reason why he was killed is because of his evolving views with Israel. TPUSA's position, from my understanding, is that Charlie was killed by Tyler Robinson. It was fueled from transgenderism, not from, and he did not have evolving views on Israel. So you can see the contradiction there, right? But this was a trending topic because obviously everyone wants to know who killed Charlie Kirk, how, and why. And Tucker Carlson even says it, there's a lot at stake here. And for those people who may not understand, let me just help you like kind of tie everything together. If the alleged claim that the reason why Charlie Kirk was murdered because it was with his evolving views on Israel, then ultimately you cannot say, because it was proven to be true, that claim that he was killed by Tyler Robinson or that he was killed because of transgenderism. And that begs a even bigger question is to, okay, if he was killed because of his evolving views, then who really did kill him? And if it comes out to find out that there were other people, other parties at play, then it goes onto a bigger scale and a bigger scope as to how this can impact globally. If Charlie Kirk was saying he no longer supports the Israel cause, and the Israel cause allegedly could now be, you can say, suspect to, or someone who supports the Israel cause, or whatever the case may be. This is not me making any claims. This is just me kind of like having you guys lay out and understand like why. Basically, this would just prove that basically there'll be suspect into all this. Whoever supported the donors, whether if it's the donors, whether if it's another way that Charlie's associated with it, whether if it's the nation itself, those are going to be grounds for an investigation to happen. And if it comes out to be true that was true, that was the motives, and the players at hand did do these egregious acts, then begs the question as to why. And that would probably directly associate with all the things that are transpiring right now with the war. So, and then there may be even a more even darker reason that may not have been exposed yet, or may be exposed as things kind of unfold. So of course there's a lot at stake, because ultimately Charlie's death, if associated with the claims that are being said, can honestly transform the world as we know it, let alone the political structure and the coordination between allies and just overall the tension between countries right now in a very significant way. And I don't want to harp on this too much, but I always want to tie lessons back to you guys, and I'll tie everything up at the end. But I do appreciate at the end of the day Tucker Carlson just coming out and just saying what he believes, acknowledging that he could be wrong, but specifically not on. I don't think he felt like he was wrong on Charlie's evolving views on Israel, but that there may be an association there to his murder. But he does obviously. There are people within Charlie's organization, specifically Blake Neff. I'll drop the tweet right here so you guys can see it. That I think he was very careful here. I think him and Candace have been going back and forth a lot for a while regarding issues with, difference of opinion between how Charlie Kirk has died and then also how they have been very, you can kind of say, open with criticisms towards each other on how they handled and how they're handling the investigation. But I think Blake Neff is not a dumb cookie either. Like, he knows, like, he chose his words very carefully in this tweet when he specifically was commenting on Tucker. He said Tucker is lying, right? We see that he says Tucker is lying, but he's not like taking the same shots that he would, like calling him out of his name. Obviously, he never comes with like sustainable facts. I personally just, from what I've seen, like he just goes off the mouth pretty crazy. But in his, he just said actually there are people who believe that, and this group does not include Tucker, that Tyler Robinson did do this and his motivation was transgender radicalism. And I think he's defending his position without like directly attacking Tucker. So I think he's being very careful because I think he knows that, Candace is hardball for sure, especially when it comes to the situation with Charlie and in general. But Tucker, I think Tucker is definitely more willing to like just take the head off the dragon and just go full force. And I think Blake knows that. But without beating on a dead horse, I just appreciate Tucker coming out to take a stand and trying to figure out what happened to his friend. But let's move on to the second story because there's a lot of stuff that we need to cover. And like I said, at the end, we're just going to tie everything together. The second thing that we're going to cover is, to my surprise, I wasn't expecting this to happen. But to be fair, last week we covered this. This is the video that we covered it in. If you want to go check it out and see my comments and what was said specifically by the PBD team regarding the AI video with Charlie Kirk, check this video out. But I was surprised because when they actually decided to talk about this, I think Patrick in general has like kind of let things unfold and not have addressed every trending topic or every conversation regarding Charlie Kirk. I think he's just been trying to stay out of it for the most part. He has commented here and there, and I feel like sometimes have taken shots, whether if it's a TPUSA, whether if it's to, and I'm not gonna say like they're like, I'm just saying shots meaning like he just said like opinions that may go against or may speak critical of. That's the best word for it. He has spoken critically of TPUSA. I think he took spoken critically of Candace and just basically just sharing a little bit of like, I guess his views, but he hasn't really touched the topic of the controversy surrounding Charlie Kirk's death. But I was surprised last week when we covered it that he did. He decided to let Vinny tell the story regarding the video that we reviewed and that was going over with Erica presenting an alleged AI video surrounding Charlie Kirk, claiming her to take over. And Patrick had dropped a bombshell saying that he talked to the estate planner, I think the estate planner was part of the board. I could get the story mixed up, but essentially he talked to the estate planner and that was Charlie's wishes. But they were hypercritical that one, they were trying to figure out if the AI video was an AI video. Then they ultimately decided on that show that it was an AI video and they basically let it loose. right? We went over it last week, so we won't go over it again. But now I was expecting, to be honest, I was expecting them to do the clips, right? Do the general clips that they always do. They put them on X, and I believe they put it on YouTube, of like different sections and different highlights of the show. To my surprise, I didn't see anything. So I'm assuming, like, you know what, maybe there's something there, maybe it's not, but I didn't think too deep into it. Fast forward to this Monday. Looks like there was some kind of conversation that happened in the back end. I'm gonna let PBD explain it, and then we'll get into it. But they didn't spend too much time on this. I want to say they spent like maybe 2-3 minutes tops on this conversation. So I'll just play it through so you guys can listen.
Next story here is TPUSA. About a week ago, we showed a video where Vinny reacted to a video that was where Andrew Colvett and his partner said, "We are trolling the trolls," and we thought it was a fake video. Folks from TPUSA, I won't give names, they reached out to me and they said, hey, that was a real video. That's actually what Charlie Kirk said. And I spoke to the gentleman who set up his estate planning, Doug, who I mentioned him before. And, you know, he says, Pat, this is what he wanted. He wanted Erica to run the organization afterwards. And the controversy was over this video. And the video I'm going to come to because you guys had a 45-minute call. Go ahead, guys.
The most important relationship in your life is the one that you have with your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His passion was my passion, and now his mission is my mission.
I appoint my wife to run Turning Point USA if something happens to me. Erica would do a great job.
Okay, Vinny, you had a call with Andrew.
So I talked to Andrew. Mind you, Pat, I think we met him in passing at one of the TPUSA events. Adam hooked it up where I got back from, where were we?
We
Washington.
were in D.C.
Great
and I
fight,
spoke
yeah.
with him for 45 minutes. You ever just see somebody on TV or on videos and everybody has their assumptions in their head. But then you speak with them, you're like, oh, okay, now I know exactly who you are as a human being. Pat, 45 minutes. I mean, we could have gone for a 2-hour conversation. He explained that video that they put together, it wasn't them, it wasn't AI. But on X, somebody put, people community know if they're on a certain side. He had to go in and he had to get the community note lifted because it wasn't AI. So he explained the whole situation to me, and it was not what I thought it was. And I commented on it because that's what I thought was happening. But the 45-minute conversation, Pat, it's as if I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation, but if people out there, if you don't think that Andrew Colvett is genuinely concerned and worried, Pat, he has so many more questions about everything that happened with the shooter, with Tyler Robinson's, his name. It was such a good conversation, and I never judged him or thought anything of him different, but having spoken with him and clarifying the situation, I was wrong because what I saw that Grok said, right, boom, AI, they can go on Grok and people could keep community Pat, and even if it's not real, he had to go on and fix it. So I was in the wrong, and yeah, he's actually a really, really a good dude.
Talking to Andrew.
Very, very good dude.
That's
he's a stand-up dude.
Yeah, so there you have it with that video. It's interesting because when we were on a flight to UFC White House, we had one of our lawyer friends with us on the flight there, and he says one of the things people are doing now is at the top, you can run audits to see what bots are attacking you, from where, funded by whom. Imagine that research to have. So let me say it one more time. Imagine if you could run a research to know who is attacking you with fake bots and who is paying for it. How valuable would that be?
Big time.
You know who's the one guy that knows all of those because he owns the company? It's a guy named Elon Musk. So guess what person knows who's attacking who and destroying who? Elon Musk and his team. He can literally say, can you run a report why this guy is being attacked by such and such? Oh, follow the money. That's where. So Elon knows everybody's dirt that applies to Twitter. What is the easiest place to defame somebody? X. Out of all the platforms, what is the easiest place to defame somebody? X. It's very easy to defame somebody at X. And what is the one platform that can confuse the most people and gaslight the most people? It's X.
Yeah, of course.
X is the place because a lot of people are getting their news from X. So anyways, it's interesting when that happens as you go through it. But I'm glad, Vinny, you had a call with him, and I'm glad you're manning up with it. Every once in a while, we're going to get things that are, wrong, and we're going to man up and talk about it and go from there. So,
Okay, so as you guys see, that was literally it. That's all they discussed regarding that. For one, let's just acknowledge one thing. I do appreciate when people get things wrong. I do appreciate when they go back and correct the narrative, right? That goes without saying. So I always think that it's better to have integrity, put your pride to the side, put the ego to the side, and do the right thing. So I appreciate that. Now, whether I just want to put this out here to people. Obviously, just based off of this alone, there are back-end conversations that are being had that we're not privy to. Whether if it's with the PBD podcast and TPUSA, whether if it's Candace and people who worked or have worked and currently are working with TPUSA, whether if it's conversations with other podcasters collaborating, whether if it's between people who are driving this narrative on both ends, whatever the case may be. There are a lot of conversations that the average person, the public, are not privy to. So obviously when we hear different things and when different information is put out there, we automatically as human beings start to speculate. I'm a speculative personality. The first thing that came to mind for me is just like, okay, what conversations were had? Vinny gave a little bit. He said there was a 45-minute conversation, but he literally said in like probably 20 seconds that if you don't think that Andrew Kovac is curious, have other questions surrounding Charlie Kirk's death, you're ultimately wrong. I think a lot of people want to believe that, but I don't think that maybe Andrew has done a great job articulating it, especially for people who are, you can kind of say, spearheading the investigation to truly find out, at least from the public's view, of them doing the work to find out who killed Charlie Kirk, how and why. And ultimately, when you see things at face value, right? When you see Candace Owens, Baron Coleman, Tucker Carlson coming out and questioning the narrative, questioning and coming out with like legitimate questions and responses and alternative views on the narrative, and then you have people like that are directly involved with TPUSA, Charlie's company, that are not as vocal with their views, with if they're pretty much going along with the narrative, that you can kind of say fuels public doubt with who their character is, their position. And I get it. They're just like, hey, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I don't think the little bit that I've had insight with like tuning into the story more and more, I don't think that's the way that Charlie approached things. And I think that's why people are so hypercritical. I think Charlie wasn't afraid to have the conversation. Charlie wasn't afraid to tell you what he believed in. In fact, he not only wasn't afraid, he wanted you to know what was true and what was not of him. He wanted his integrity and his faith and his values to be on full display. Now, am I saying that he was completely transparent to everything? No. So it begs the question as to like also Patrick Bet-David's claim, speaking to an estate planner, saying that this was truly Charlie's wishes. I think other people are going to have going to have a lot to say about that. And Patrick Bet-David even said himself that he didn't agree with that decision. He thought the board, and he gave his opinion on what he thinks that they should have done, given that TPUSA is a predominantly male, or was a male attended organization, and it's going downhill in that aspect. I don't disagree with him there. No male is going to want to follow a female. Males love being supported by females, and there are great women leaders, but at the end of the day, a man is a man, and he's going to stay firm in his own given right within his household and within the things that he follows, and the things that he leads in. So I think that obviously, I think that's just common sense, but they just don't agree with that. They don't agree with PBD's perspective. But ultimately, what interests me is I really wonder how, if Candace is going to respond to this, if she's not going to respond to this, I wonder how things are going to unfold as we get more and more information, with Tucker coming out and saying what was said about Charlie's evolving views, then this kind of sparking out of nowhere, saying that the community knows wrong. There was a lot of edits in there, so now it's going to bring speculation as to like if you could trust Grok, if you can even trust the community notes. And then to see like, okay, well, if Andrew Colvin can have a 45-minute conversation with Vinny that isn't directly tied in any kind of way, but it shares our concerns about how Charlie Kirk died and why, then, you know, and he has the same, if he has the same concerns, then why is he not associated with the people who are trying to find out these answers? So ultimately, I just want to touch base on that because I found it very interesting, and I'm just very curious as to the back end conversations. There's been a lot of quote unquote leaks coming from TPUSA. This is allegedly. I wonder if there are people who are saying one thing in public to stay within the organization and get information, or, you know, I'll just leave it at that. I won't say or. I'll leave it at that. But I'm just curious. I'm very curious, and I just hope Charlie Kirk just gets his justice because obviously, like, it was just a tragic thing to just be killed because of a personal view. Now, what the personal view actually was and how that affects the rest of the world, we'll see. But lastly, let's close out with Mr. JD Vance. Let's transition into JD and the ongoing Iran deal. As you guys know, we covered last week. There was finally a real ceasefire and a memorandum put in place to open up the negotiations for the next 60 days and open up the Strait of Hormuz to kind of balance back economic stability, right? So we're here, day one, I guess, of the negotiations. I think that this took place either today or last Friday. Last Thursday, I believe, in Switzerland. And let's just say things did not start off the best way. And I'm gonna play that in a second. But I wanted to play something as well. JD Vance appeared on the Diary of CEO podcast. The video came out last Thursday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was Thursday. And I watched the whole entire thing. I think it was like a really good interview personally. It gave me insight on who JD Vance is. I think a lot of us don't actually know who JD Vance is. I think a lot of us just view him as like this guy that came out of nowhere who was selected to be the vice president. With all due respect, that was me. That is me. And I think there's a lot of people that are like that. But essentially, they go, and I'm not going to play the entire thing. I just want to give you guys a general gist on his background. And I think that kind of opens up his personality so you guys can see before we get into the actual Iran deal and how it's going, how the negotiations are starting off, on like who JD Vance is, and so you guys have a better understanding. I think that context is important, and I don't think a lot of people really know who he is. I think that they just go based off of like the things that are commented online versus like listening in on the person's interviews, on their articles, on their stories, looking back on the things that they have done. And there's some things in this interview that I did not know, so it was pretty insightful. I always appreciate Stephen Bartlett's layout. And I don't think that he played softball with him at all. They went over, their views on the different views on immigration. Stephen Bartlett being very direct, saying like, hey, I'm a black man, and this is your views on immigration. So what's up with that? It was very, it got a little spicy, but it remained very respectful. I think there was even a portion where they started to talk about relationships. And I wanted to do like my own separate reaction to this. Maybe I still will. But they got into a discussion on relationships, how JD Vance was with his partner, and how he probably wasn't the best partner in the beginning, and how that his faith kind of changed, how his faith has changed him to be a better man, to be a better spouse. And I think it was pretty interesting. But we're not going to get into all that today. I'm just going to try to give you guys an overview of who JD Vance is. So without further ado, let's get into this.
I have your book here. Okay. And it says, of all the things that I hated about my childhood, nothing compared to the revolving door of father figures. I hated the disruption, and I hated how often these boyfriends would walk out of my life just as I began to like them. I always think to understand the people that are sat in front of me, you have to get a picture of their early context.
Sure.
And I had no idea about your earliest context. And it has in some respects informed what I've then seen from you later as an adult. But can you take me back
to
your earliest context and explain that quote for me?
Yeah, so I was raised in a very working class town, very working class family. This is a photo of me when I was a little kid here. And my family, like a lot of other families in similar circumstances, we struggled. We struggled to adapt to middle class life. Yeah, this is my sister and my grandfather. It's interesting, my grandfather had very low formal education. He graduated from high school. My grandmother actually left school when she was 13. Very religious people, particularly my grandmother. But, they struggled pretty much economically for most of their lives. My grandfather died when I was 13. I think my grandmother died when I was 20. And, this is probably not even a year before she died. And I was about to go to Iraq, and she was very old and frail. And this is one of the last photos of the two of us. And this is really the woman who raised me, because you raised the revolving door of father figures. So mom, amazing person. She's been clean and sober for now 11 years. But she was in the throes of a pretty bad addiction problem for much of my childhood. And so this was kind of my savior. This was the person who stepped in and made sure I had a stable life to the extent that I did.
And your grandmother, she got pregnant at 13.
Correct.
And she had a miscarriage at that age?
Yeah, that's right. So think about this. Eastern Kentucky, you're talking about the hills of an extremely impoverished, very rural part of the United States of America. And so, she is dating my grandfather, who I think at the time is 16. She's 13. So these are children. She gets pregnant. They moved to Ohio for more opportunity because you just couldn't build a good life for yourself. There weren't enough good jobs in that part of the world. And she had a miscarriage. So like the thing that brought her out of her home, I think hastened them getting married. I don't think they would have gotten married at 13 and 16 were it not for this unplanned pregnancy. She was kind of in it then. So they're married. They have a very chaotic marriage, an abusive marriage in a lot of ways. But they have 3 kids, my mom, my uncle, my aunt. And the story of our family is in some ways, some of us were able to kind of break the cycle and some of us weren't. And part of what motivated me to write that book was trying to understand why is it that life worked out for some of us and didn't work out for others.
So your biological father?
Yeah.
He put you up for adoption.
So he did. So I was adopted by a man when I was 5 or 6 years old by the name of Robert Hamill. And he became, and is still technically, if you look at my birth certificate, he is still listed as my legal father. Now he was in the picture from, call it, I was 7 until 10 or 11. And then he and mom got divorced. He still stuck around for a little bit after that. But by the time I was 12 years old, he was just gone. Never talked to him again, never saw him again. And
am I right in thinking this is the third man in your life at this point? Because your sister, Lindsay, comes from a different father.
That's right. So her father, very good guy. She's 5 or 6 years older than me. And so he was the first of my mother's husbands. And then my dad, my biological father, was number 2. And then my legal father was number 3. And then, things sort of got a little quicker from that point forward. So there was more turnover, let's say, in the relationships at that point forward.
There was also a guy called Matt thereafter at 13 years old that your mum had met.
Yeah. Good guy. Very close to him. He actually is very political. And so he and I reconnected a little bit over our shared interest in politics, but he was just a good, hardworking guy. He was only around for maybe a few years, probably less than that of my life, but he was a significant and positive force.
In your book, page 124, you say living with mum and Matt, which is when you were 14 years old, was like a front row seat to the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, it was just chaotic, right? I mean, things that I thought of as normal that I later realized in, talking to my wife or talking to friends, that just a level of relationship instability. Fighting, people throwing stuff. If the fights get really bad, some person throws a plate at somebody else. Again, it sounds, even talking about it now, kind of crazy, but it was pretty normal back then. And, sometimes it was worse and sometimes it was better, but there was a sense in which relationships were always just kind of chaotic.
Okay, so that gives you guys just a little bit. I don't want to play the full thing. They kind of get it on this. They open up with this, as you guys can see, the interview. And I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at Stephen Bartlett's face real quick. that gives you guys a general gist of who JD Vance was. They go on to discuss like how he met his wife, how he got into politics, what was his driver there, pretty much, his policies. Specifically, they spoke about immigration where things get a little bit spicy. If you guys want to go check it out, definitely do. The videos called Vice President JD Vance. They tricked me about Trump and I was wrong. He also addresses how he was unsupportive of Trump in 2026 when he first got elected, and then what changed within that time. So Stephen Bartlett definitely pulls out all the punches here, even with the they speak about the political game, and basically just gives some pretty interesting insights there. But it was a good interview. It was a good interview for sure. But I wanted to play that because I don't know enough about JD Vance, right? I don't know enough about his character. I don't know enough about what he's done. I don't know anything about his background. And this interview definitely sheds light as to like a little bit of who he is as a man, who he is as a politician, what his beliefs are, and a little bit about him and where he grew up. And I wanted to play that because I actually watched this before today's PBD podcast and before the news came out about everything with Switzerland. So he doesn't come across to me as a pushover in any shape, way, or form, or as a weak man. Obviously, he had a tough childhood, and it obviously framed and developed a lot of the views that he has now. He's a Christian man. His wife is not Christian, but that's the religion that is followed in their household. He's very strong on immigration. He is very pro-America first. So he shares a lot of the views of the general conservative movement, but he's just not well known at all, especially because I kind of think that, Trump is just such of you can kind of say a powerhouse, whether you agree with him or not. And he just kind of like is saying like crazy things all the time that, the focus is mostly on him. And of course, he's the president, the focus is going to be on him. But we just don't get enough of who JD is and what he's doing. So him being the primary negotiator for the Iran deal is definitely an opportunity for him to showcase if he's capable of becoming the next president. And how things are starting off, it seems like people, specifically leaders around the world, are not taking him as seriously as they should. So I'm gonna let the PBD explain it. I think they always do a great job breaking down these matters. So without further ado, let's get into it real quick.
All right, let's get to the next story. Next one I want to get into is, the negotiations taking place, right? Vance is in Switzerland.
Yep.
The Iranian people show up, the delegates, to want to negotiate with Vance. Bunch of videos are going viral. They're sitting there talking to each other. There's clips of saying, look, they're punking Vance. Qatar's leader didn't even want to shake the vice president's hands. You can play some of these clips so they can see it. That is the broker who's trying to make this deal happen. And this is the moment they're kissing and looking this. That's a Qatar leader, walks off. And it looked like JD wanted to shake hands, but he went the other direction. Some are saying they spoke before. And look, JD keeps trying to, but he looked at him, so he gave him the right attention as well. And then there's the moment, if you have this, where the Pakistani leader in the middle, who is trying to negotiate the deal, but Iranian delegation comes in and says he can't say something like that. And apparently they got up and they left the meeting. Okay, can you press play on this one, please? This was the moment, and if you look at the leader's face, he's like, wait a minute, what just happened? That's the Pakistani leader on the right that's been trying to broker the deal. And suddenly he's like, wait a minute, what took place? And allegedly, they decided to leave, and they left everybody there and look at Vance. So again, 100% of what I'm saying to you right now is speculation. 100% of what I'm telling you right now is speculation. I'm not telling you based on facts that I know. But then they left. And allegedly, both groups agreed to give each other 16 days to figure this part out. JD left, the other folks left, the next tier of players stayed. So imagine the C-suite executives left, but the VPs and directors are there to negotiate the deal together. They got 16 days. While this is going on, the president tweeted something about getting the deal done. And this tweet really upset a lot of Iranians, and they said, we don't take the president's threat seriously. And the threat was something like, if you guys don't get the deal done, we're going to bomb Iran in ways we have never bombed Iran before, and
Again.
Yeah, again. And yeah, Iran must immediately stop the highly paid proxies in Lebanon from causing trouble. If they don't, we'll hit Iran hard again, just like we did last week, only harder. And so this is one, but there's another one as well. Another one is like, let's get this deal done. And Iran's people are like, we're not taking this negotiation seriously. And so this is led in. I'll pause here real quick, Tom, to come to you, and then we'll get into the real issue that I want us to process together. Go ahead.
Okay, so Tom's going to take over, but I just want to pause there because I just want to introduce to you guys what the speculation, what the story is. So yeah, based off what you can see, right, there's definitely some kind of tension there. Whether if it's exactly to what PBD said, we don't know. He even said, hey, this is speculation, he's not sure. But there is an alleged rumor going on saying that, hey, they're going to let the, like he said, the VPs, the directors kind of negotiated out the C-suites. The C-suites will come in, the VP, and then, the representatives from Qatar will come, the leadership from Qatar will come out, and then in 16 days, and then, have a conversation. And I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm not going to harper too much on just my opinions. But the thing I do want to say is that obviously we want to wish JD Vance the best of luck and hoping that he can get a deal done that obviously maintains our strong position as the USA. Like, we live in the US, we should be rooting for the US. Obviously none of us wanted this to happen. This should have never happened in the end, but since we're here, we need to deal with whatever's left and, strap up our boots and make the most of it. I also think that this is a pivotal time for JD Vance. It's a major opportunity for him to showcase if he can actually do the job. Can he actually become president? Can he be the leader that we need him to be in order to be running the number one country in the world? Whether people like it or not, we are still number one. And this is the time for him to showcase that he's capable of doing that, because 4 years is not too far from now, guys. So, and that was the reason why I wanted to kind of give you guys a general gist of his personality, of how his background is. So you guys can see, I don't think that he's a pushover. I don't. But I do think that he is in new territory because, presidents, vice presidents, they're only elected 4 years at a time. They're obviously respectful of who the leader is because they know that, the world, we're just, the leading country of the world. So there is going to be respect there. But Patrick Bet-David touches up on this. I think he is right that they do not think that JD Vance is going to be the leading man or the president in this upcoming term, or who knows, maybe at all. So I think that they're kind of like, maybe to them, just like, why are you guys sending me this number 2 guy that has no potential of being number 1? We don't even know who this is. This is a stranger. I don't know. This is my speculation. This is allegedly. And I think JD Vance is navigating different territory because we're not speaking about people that are elected in, 4 years out of the time. No, these people are in leadership roles for a very, very long time. And, they're coming to play ball at the end of the day. And they view themselves in a stronger position, whether if it's the structure of the deal, whether if it's because they just feel themselves above him, whether they feel like because he's going to be insignificant within a certain amount of years. I'm not sure, but we want to be rooting for this deal to actually happen and to be rooting that we maintain in a strong position. So I'm not here to bash JD Vance. I'm not here to be hypercritical of him. I'm here to wish him the best of luck. And also be paying attention to how he handles this deal. Because at the end of the day, even though I am wishing him the best of luck, this is his time to show if he can really get the ball rolling, if he can really execute on what's needed for the best of the US, for the best of us in the US. And obviously the world is depending on this deal to be done for economic stability, for just overall just stopping a war that was obviously killing and affecting the lives of so many people around the world. Specifically, with people in the Middle East. So we'll see how things unfold. I don't think that is right for people to automatically start just, speculating. This is, or being hypercritical. I am genuinely concerned because this is definitely going to shape how the next few years are going to be. But then also we're going to see if JD Vance is going to be the president. A little bit of we're going to be expecting from him. So I hope that he brings his A game. I hope that, he he is very clear and comes from a position of strength when it comes to these negotiations. And we'll see how things unfold. It's like literally we just got the information last week. They just met on Thursday. We'll see how things go. A lot of people are saying that Rubio may be the candidate for 2028 instead of JD Vance. And right now, this is his time to show the naysayers if they're right or wrong. So we'll see how things go. I didn't want to harper too much on this because I want to get into the lessons that I have for you guys, because it is Self-Mastery Monday, right? I am not going to harper too much on the lessons, but I wanted to just highlight two important hypercritical things that should be in your arsenal when it comes to self-mastery. And that's one, standing on your belief and your values, because there's times where they're going to be tested. One thing that I respect, and kind of tying this into today's stories, right? The reason I brought up, the story between Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson on their position with, who killed Charlie Kirk, how and why, whether it fits with, Pastor Bet-David and Vinny addressing the issue with the AI controversy video. I think it's important to honor and have honor and integrity, right? To be very clear on where you stand, whether if it's, you're for or against the narrative that's going on surrounding Charlie Kirk, or whether if it's in your own life with your personal beliefs, with your personal convictions. It's important to let people know where you stand. And that's why I do respect Candace and Tucker for being very vocal about where they stand on this political issue. On this specific issue, where they stand just in general, their general beliefs, because then you have questions and you feel less optimistic and less accepting. You can kind of say that this person is a good person. For example, not judging, Andrew Colvett, but with characters like Andrew Colvett, just because I don't know him personally, right? Vinny said he never spoke to him personally until then, and he seems like a good dude. I never spoke to him personally, but just based off the general things that are placed out there, I think, you not being as vocal on where you stand with certain things, or at least I don't know of it. I just haven't seen it. I think from my understanding, you go with the official narrative, but from what Vinny says, you do have more questions on what the official narrative is, but you don't vocalize those things maybe as much as you should, or maybe I'm just not hearing them. I could be wrong, right? I think when you have people that stand their ground, even if they're going against the majority, even if they're going against the official narrative, and they're saying, like, this is what I believe in, people just have more confidence in who they are and their character, versus when you're kind of like a little wishy-washy or you're more reserved with your opinion. There could be some strategic reason around it. Again, like I said, we're not included on the conversations that are having in the background, whether if it's with PBD, whether if it's with Candace, whether if it's with Tucker, we do not know. All we know is what's put in front of us. But I do encourage you guys that regardless of whatever room that you stand in, be firm on who you are and be firm on your belief, because nothing is worth your integrity, at least for me, right? No amount of money, no amount of popularity, no amount of fame, no amount of anything is worth my integrity. It's important, and I believe that you die on the hill that you stand on, and there are going to be times where that's going to be challenging, but you just got to stick through it, and you got to stand, because if you don't stand for anything, then you stand for nothing, and ultimately it's just you're just going to be no better than the people right now defending Charlie Kirk's death. And, we don't know what the actual facts are. We're going to find them out. And, the truth is going to reveal who was using this within their favor, who was trying to cover up certain things, who was involved, who was manipulating the situation. And we're going to see all those people come out, hopefully sooner rather than later. But going on to the second lesson, which I think is more transferable with people, is understanding why it's important to be negotiating from a strong position. Because whether you are discussing, politics, navigating your career, building a business, or simply just trying to strengthen your relationships, these principles apply. Stand for something, be willing to seek the truth, treat people with respect, expect respect in return, and know your value before entering the room. And never allow pressure to negotiate away your integrity. And Because you have to understand, like, opportunities are going to come and go. Hopefully this deal with Iran is going to come and go. Hopefully we find justice with what happened to Charlie Kirk how and why. But, you know, regardless of the situation, your actual beliefs should not change. Your position based off new information may change. Your people will maybe disagree with you, but your character is something you carry in every room you walk into. So I wanted to share with you guys the importance of negotiating from a strong position. I think the biggest takeaway about negotiating from a strong position is obviously you want to prepare yourself with the facts, know and identify, you know, the key players are going to be, who are going to be a part of this. And that's obviously standing firm and knowing what your non-negotiables are. But the most important thing is being able to walk away. Being able to walk away from a deal that's not going to benefit you, or a deal that just can't be done, is the strongest position that you can take. And we've seen that both teams walked away. They're going to let their, you know, their team kind of hash things out, and hopefully they can come back. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you know your value, and you want to make sure that you ultimately are standing firm on your beliefs, on your non-negotiables, and you're not letting things compromise you, that you are standing for something. But I just want to share with you guys those things. Thank you so much for spending this Self-Mastery Monday with me. I don't want to go on for too long because I already had a very long morning with tons of meetings, tons of preparations for meetings. I know I'm just sending this out a little bit later. I'm going to get on an actual schedule for you guys. We already have a time frame for our Love Actually series. It comes out every Friday at 8 p.m. I'm part of the second video, a part of our Double Feature Fridays. So definitely stay tuned there, and we're just going to have more of a structured time frame. We already have structured days. As you guys know, we drop content every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we will be getting the ball rolling, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'm gonna say within the next month, just because I have a lot going on between the negotiations and moving, and my schedule just kind of turning over week over week, at least for the next several weeks, and maybe some travel coming up as well. So I just kind of need to navigate through that, and then obviously once I move and come back from travel, then I'd be able to have just a better grasp and control of my schedule. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in with me today. Do remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notification, and do like the video. And do drop a comment below if there's anything specifically that you think that I'm missing, or any specific news that you think that I should be covering. I went over basically the general, you can kind of say top stories that I've seen, but if there's anything particular that you guys are interested in, drop a comment below. I would love to know what you guys are listening to, what you guys want my feedback in or my comments on. But I will see you guys in my next video. So bye.